What is your most traumatic experience with a teacher?
Technically, it was the vice principal, but the day my brother died, apparently he thought it would be a good idea to walk in on story time. The teacher was reading to the class, set me on his lap, and tell me in front of everyone that my brother committed suicide. When I was in second grade, my mom died. When I was in third grade, the evil witch of a teacher held me back from recess one day for something. While it was just us in the room, she asked if I went to church. I said no. She then told me that I was going to hell and would never see my mom again. I hated that bitch. So when I was in kindergarten, I didn't make it to the bathroom in time and wet myself. Went to the nurse's office, got new clothes, but instead of panties I had to wear a pull-up. Not a big deal. I guess it was a school policy for kids my age, I don't really know. When I get back to my class, my teacher loudly says, "Oh good, the baby is finally back," or something like that. She also knew about the policy and asked if I was wearing a diaper so every other student could hear. I was 5 and felt a ton of shame and humiliated. I started crying and trying to get out of school a lot because of it. My teacher often referred to me as a baby for the rest of the year. Also, she would constantly ask if I needed to potty or if I was wearing a diaper, like I was a toddler or something. In the 8th grade, I had a book report to do for 4 books, all due on the same day. That was way too overwhelming to do at the time. I had some serious domestic violence going on at home between my parents. Spent all my time taking care of my younger brother, cleaning up the house, cooking, and crying from all the stress. It was worth 20% of my grade, and the day before it was due, I broke down and told my teacher everything. Down to the time when my brother bled from his head from being hit by my dad, to the most recent attempted murder upon my mom. If I had even received a B, my dad would have beat the shit out of my mom for giving birth to a stupid kid. He called child services. My parents received the call and gave me the silent treatment for 3 days. They told him I lied just to get out of the assignment. The social worker told my teacher what my parents said and made the rest of my year a living hell. He treated me with such pettiness after that and threatened to call my parents whenever I had either spoken too loud in class or whenever I was unparticipative in gym. He called my parents for my bad behavior. Home life got significantly harder after that, and my parents told my entire family continuously how stupid I was for telling him. They laughed at me when I cried or got upset about it. Years later, after repressing everything, I was diagnosed with severe PTSD from childhood trauma as a witness and victim of domestic violence, attempted murder thrice, and it took me 3 years in therapy to get over it. It was quick, but it was tough as it was during my university years, and I ended up having to take an extra year of school to catch up mentally. I was ready to speak up about my struggles again when I couldn't function anymore, as the traumatic flashbacks occurred twice a week for hours at a time. I couldn't do a single thing except tremble and live in fear. I was 18 by the time I was ready to reach out for help. Fuck you, Mr. Gentle. Your name is creepy as fuck. And I really do wonder if being a petty 33-year-old to a 12-year-old child made your quality of life better. I hope that there's proper procedures put in place to protect children from such experiences. So back in 1st grade, I was at this private school, and despite not enjoying reading, I actually loved school and had a ton of friends, and it was great. Got along with everyone. One day my sister stayed home sick and my parents dropped me off, and as I was walking in, I said hi to the nun that taught the other 1st grade class. She said hi and I kept walking. As I was approaching the end of the hall, she dropped her keys. I heard, so I turned around and looked. In between her and I were 2 4th grade boys I recognized from my sister's class. They started to approach her to pick up her keys when she lost it and started screaming at me that I was rude and awful and some other terrible not-so-non-like things. The boys were confused. I was confused. They were closer and going to help, but she was furious that I didn't help her. I got pulled out of class to talk to the principal that day. Between her and the nun, I really thought I did something horrible. I was punished and made to feel like I murdered this nun. When my dad picked me up that day, I just started to sob, and I didn't stop until we got home and my mom and dad and sister held me. I was having a full-blown panic attack, My moral values were being questioned and I was horrified at myself. My parents were furious and they called my teacher demanding to know what happened. All she said was she was unsure and that I seemed to have a run-in with the nun. My parents went in the next morning for answers, and we got an apology from the principal, but not for the nun. And I remember standing at the counter with my big sister, terrified and sad, and this nun walks in and says being rude to me again. My sister is standing there horrified. The front office secretary is shocked and my mom ripped this nun a new one. The nun hadn't seen my parents there. My parents went to the head father at this parish and read him the riot act. When he tried to defend the nun, they went to our bishop. He clobbered the whole school. But by then the damage was done. I was a target to the nun. Everything I did she had a problem with. I stopped being myself at school. I became very insecure and quiet. My sister and those boys took it upon themselves to check on me as often as possible. They became targets too. So at the end of the school year, my parents pulled us and we went to a new school. I never got my confidence back. And in 6th grade, a new boy joined our class. Immediately, I recognized him as being one of my best friends from 1st grade. He was in the nuns class. He immediately recognized me and his first words was, "Damn, Sister Thomas was a real bitch." Huh. Which for private school kids was a big deal to say. We ended up staying at the same school throughout high school, and at graduation, when our elementary school group got together for a picture, he said, "You never really found yourself again after that. You should try to find it. You engage, always been amazing, you just gotta find it again. So fuck you, Sister Thomas, you cunt." I had a professor for one of my theorized math courses that was a complete dick. There are 3 specific experiences. Background info. The class had no textbook, and we had only whatever he wrote on the board in lecture. Even when it came to Maple, which we were, apparently, required to know, even though in this course description it said intro to Maple. The homework was actually impossible, and we had quizzes on it, randomly. One time we had a pop quiz where the homework required for it was just undoable, because it was not related to lectures and not Googleable. Senior level, theorized, math courses. After the quiz, he asked, "Was there any questions on the homework/quiz?" So I raised my hand and asked, "Why do we have quizzes on things we don't cover, considering we don't have a textbook?" I was pretty mad at this point. His response was, "I refuse to answer unless you rephrase the question to make it sound like it wasn't my fault, because it's your fault for not understanding the material." I almost walked out of the classroom, but I knew that I couldn't ever miss anything, because he also didn't post his lecture notes anywhere. One time, he told us of an upcoming quiz, and it was to basically figure out a proof about some theory that literally took 700 years for mathematicians to figure out. We had 4 days. I just didn't even show up to class. This one irked me the most. I went to his office hours, and I apologized for making it seem like my question was his fault. It was more of an actual question and not meant to have the intent of an attack on him. I'm a very blunt person. I asked if there was literally anywhere online or tutor-wise in which I could get extra help. He told me that there was no textbook and that his lectures were all I needed. I was like, okay, but clearly this stuff isn't working for me. You don't have any backup plans for students that can't understand easily? Keep in mind, again, his lectures had almost nothing to do with the homework assignments, which stopped about halfway through the semester, so there was actually no way in teaching yourself this stuff. He told me that he would not help me and to just study his lectures harder, so I left. Overall, one of the worst professors and humans I have ever met. I cannot believe someone of that manner and caliber was allowed to be a professor and was actual credible. I somehow got a C, and I surely don't know how anyone got an A. The class's grades were like 35% A, literally 1 B, 50% C, and the rest were below C. Basically all experiences with my high school Chinese teacher, who I had for 3 years. She was incredibly emotionally manipulative. When class started, the entire class of 25 high schoolers was dead quiet because we had to wait for her to talk before class would start. When she was mad at us, We sat in silence for 15 or 20 minutes. Just entering that class every day was traumatic, and she always found new ways to single each of us out and humiliate us. My most memorable moments. Our tests usually had an oral and written portion. During the oral portion, she had us sit at a desk by the door to prepare, and then take the test with her in the hall. Everyone else was sitting in their seats. At the end of the test, a classmate tried to put the desk back, but she was upset that he didn't put it back, and proceeded to pick up the desk and shove it at us while yelling in Chinese. We were taking a test. Some parts were in English, some were in Chinese. Two of my classmates were turning in their tests. One girl says to the other, "Oh, was that supposed to be in English or Chinese?" My teacher heard and lost it. She accused this girl of cheating and threatened to kick her out of the IB program. This was sobbing and gasping for air. After this, our teacher made us go outside and walk around the track, which happened a lot, along with running up and down the stairs. I can't remember a specific time when she made me cry, but maybe my brain is blacking it out to protect me. I just remember feeling completely on edge every day when I walked into class. I had a teacher who loved to humiliate and injure students through manipulating other students using a game called the cootie game. Anyone who lost would get a punishment done to them by the winners of the week. Her first example, she made a kid keep his nose on the board with a red dot of chalk, and he had allergies, so he sneezed. She made everyone humiliate him while she kept him up front. She had kids lock each other in closets, injure each other, roll each other through that grass that leaves small, irritating cuts all over your skin, etc. She especially had it out for me, because even though we were in a Christian school, her denomination hated Catholics. She would tell the whole class I was going to hell, and why. It would be on our tests, and I would get a bad grade if I didn't answer why I was going to hell. I was in 5th grade. Once it started, it lasted until I graduated 8th grade, because she found other teachers who also didn't like Catholics. I would be sitting in the room while a teacher would discuss with students how evil Catholics were, even though I would make them aware that I was Catholic, and that their information they were using to damn me to hell with was wrong. She also was in charge of the science fair, and I was the first in the history of the school to go to regionals and get a gold. She hated me for it and made me suffer. The worst was probably that we had a talent show in front of the whole school, and I was an amazing fiction and poetry writer, and I has a piece that combined the two to read for my talent. But I was also struggling with a mental disorder that I didn't understand, and, long story short, I would randomly jokingly act like a dog to mess with people as a joke to cover up symptoms. So she knew my best friend, and I played fetch once at recess, and I would fuck with the popular girls who would bully me doing it, kind of like bringing a spider near them, I guess. She made me throw away my story and forced me to fetch sticks with my mouth in front of the whole school off of the dirty stage floor. She was later kicked out and moved to teach on an Indian reservation. I feel so bad for those children. I truly hope something horrible happened or happens to her. And that's it for today's video. I hope you liked it, and don't forget to comment with a similar anecdote or experience related to the video's topic. Leave a like, share the video if you enjoyed it, and lastly, don't forget to activate the notification bell so you don't miss any of our daily videos. Ciao.